Well, good morning! Except it isn't, it's pouring down. But I've got a 390 ADV! So this is a first impressions really of the bike, and my first impression sitting on it is, having just ridden 65 miles in the pouring rain on my 790 Adventure, as this is a bit smaller, a bit taller, but that seat's so much more comfier. Oh wow! Anyway, without further ado, well, as I just intimated, the seat on this is still not quite Honda standard, but is a lot more comfortable, at least initially, than my 790 Adventure seat, which is quite a hard seat. This one feels more cushioned, but you also feel like you're sitting a lot higher. I feel like I'm on a 790R almost, but a small one. If that makes any sense whatsoever. And that's because the seat height is, I think, a bit taller. And it's not so much just the seat height. I'm going to pull over just to show you. It's not the seat height on its own, it's the fact that it's also just a smaller bike. But I'm 5'9", 5'10" in my boots, and I'm almost flat-footed, so the pegs are forcing my feet out. If I get my feet at the side of the pegs, I'm virtually flat-footed. So even though it's another inch higher than my bike, it certainly doesn't feel like it. It gives you the impression of being taller because it's a shorter bike, but I feel like I'm sitting about the same. In fact, as I sit, let go, I can feel the suspension compressing. So in terms of height, I was a bit concerned about this bike, and I've got absolutely no qualms whatsoever. It's the equivalent of my 830mm 790, but a lot lighter, obviously. It's 30 kilograms lighter, this bike, so it feels, even with the low centre of gravity of the 790, you can definitely feel that it's a lighter bike. So in terms of seating, stopping, feels very good for me at 5'10" in my boots. Moving on. Well, one of the things that used to annoy me with my 790 Duke was at 30 miles an hour it didn't like going round, staying particularly at that speed. My friend Rob's cured his with a booster plug, which made all the difference, and then the 790 Adventure doesn't really have that problem. There's the fueling smoother, and they appear on this bike to have got the fueling about the same. I'm doing 30 miles an hour in an urban area, third gear, and it's just chugging along nicely. No surging really, that's fine. I did hear somewhere that the way that they set the fueling up is that when you open the throttle, it's graduated, if you like, because it's throttle by wire. They can set the map how they like, not the map, but they can set the fueling up any way they want to. It definitely does have that feel of it being very forgiving when you open the throttle. It's not surging, so from that point of view it feels very good to me. Yes, well, the mirrors, they see round me okay, but they seem to be slightly smaller versions of the 790 Adventure mirrors, which aren't the best. They're okay, I can see behind, but they just seem a bit small. Maybe it's just that I've got used to the mirrors on my bike, which are double take mirrors. Hey, I remembered. Okay, anyway, look, this is the sort of area that this bike is for, really. And we're going up Welsh country lanes. And I'm in second gear, and it's although it's a short throw engine, it's a single cylinder, it's tractoring up here nicely. As I say, not the greatest of days, and I can't go too fast because you don't know what's coming down. Got to make allowances for the weather, but that's second gear, 14 miles an hour, smoothly chugging up, lovely single cylinder, nice comfortable seat. If I was a word for that, I would say it's smashing. Yeah, so you can see behind, but I'd probably change those for double take mirrors no matter what anyway. Now, I believe this bike can be spec'd with a quick shifter, which again is something I would definitely have on it. I don't think this one has got a quick shifter, just feeling it. It's definitely something I would have on a KTM, any KTM, well, any bike really. Something that once you've had it, you know, you really want to keep it. So looking at the just give you a white. Looking at the menus, also got KTM My Ride navigation, which is always very useful. But thus far it doesn't appear to have picked up my navigation. Now, this was exactly what happened when I got my 790 Adventure. The first iteration of the bike just wouldn't work. I know my phone works because I used it on my bike coming here, but today for some reason or other it's not showing up. But that could be my phone, which doesn't like having multiple things on it. But it will work, it will be enabled at some point, no doubt. So yeah, it's a lovely bike. I wish the weather was. Let's have a quick look. Oh, looking along, got an Akrapovic exhaust on it. So usually with the demo models they equip it with everything. It's got the familiar 790 Adventure headlight with the look of it. It's familiar LED indicators, which the Americans don't get for some reason or other. Never quite understood that. It's got the, looks like the 790S screen on it, so presumably you could just put your, sorry, the 790R screen on it, so presumably you could just put a taller Puig screen on there straight on it for more weather protection. Not much weather protection this morning on it. So overall, my first impressions, my very first impressions are it's quite a capable little bike. It feels more like a dirt bike than the 790 Adventure, but that could be a good thing on a day like today. So on the seat, there's quite a bit of movement on the seat, and it really feels very light, this bike. I mean, it hasn't got a lot of fuel in it, but even so, I wouldn't have any qualms about it. Let's move on a bit. I have to say, the suspension on this is adjustable front and back, which my S790 isn't, and already I can tell that it feels plusher than the 790S stock suspension. Not as good as the 790R, but it's got that adjustable feel to it. You can feel that it's got, I don't know, Yeah, it feels a bit more dirt bike-ish in a good way. So for this sort of riding, you know, I'd almost say the suspension is better for this kind of riding than the 790S if you're just going to be trugging up and down little lanes. There's some beautiful countryside in the Welsh mountains. It's very good. I'm quite surprised by this. I did not expect to like this bike, and already it's getting under my skin. Take it easy down there. Nice people around here. With it being a single cylinder and quite a short throw road engine, I was expecting this to need a lot of revs before it would go, and it does probably need more than, you know, your Himalayan or similar kind of bike, but it's not bad. You know, I'm in Secca and I'm doing 3,000 revs, I'm doing 15 miles an hour, and if I want to go a bit faster, open the throttle and it responds. It's quite good. Do you know what? I think I like this bike. Okay, so here's some bouncy, rubbly lanes. Feels quite smooth. I mean, obviously it's not got the most expensive suspension in the world on it, but it still feels very good. And obviously the bike weighs about, I'm guessing with half a tank, about 170 kilograms if that. So it's over 30 kilograms lighter. Now this is where I'm expecting this bike seat height to be a problem. I've got to stop. I'm on a big slope, but no problems whatsoever. Very light bike. Got my feet flat. Actually I feel more comfortable on this bike. I feel more comfortable at that junction on this bike than I do on my own. So if you're sort of 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", maybe even 5'7", I don't think you'll have any problem with the seat height, and I'm quite surprised by that, because I was fully expecting to be saying that was a reason why this bike would not be for me. Well, it's got lean angle traction control, lean angle ABS, I believe. Well, let's see. Yeah, it feels quite good. There's a bit of dive on the front, but even with a single disc it seems to stop very well. No hint of ABS or anything kicking in there. I have to say that one thing KTM do very well is the lean angle ABS and traction control. It's very rare you ever notice it doing its stuff, but the brakes on this feel perfectly adequate for the job. Obviously it's a wet day, which is an understatement. It's absolutely chucking it down, but yeah, it feels light and flickable, feels very assured, whizzing round corners, picks up nicely. It's a very accomplished little bike, this, I have to say. I'm very surprised. I don't know why I'm surprised. I think it's because I expected it to be a little road bike. But out here in the countryside it doesn't feel small at all. Feels very good. Yeah, and this road here is absolutely atrocious, and the suspension's just soaking it up. There's no rattles, no bangs, nothing. Smooth as silk. Well, I'm riding it today in the remnants of some storm from America, I think. and it's absolutely chucking it down. There's mud everywhere, and this bike hasn't put a foot wrong. So rain riding checked. It doesn't have any modes, there's no rain mode, but it just feels very good on the road. Beautiful down here, look at this. Oh yes, there's scenery, look at this bridge. It's definitely a bike for getting some scenery on. So here we go. So going through traffic, what's it like? Well, it's actually, if you're on a little commuter bike, you certainly wouldn't have any issues going through traffic. You're sitting high enough that you can see everything. See all the lovely roadworks. Narrow and nimble enough to filter easily. I mean, filtering on this is a doddle. It's nicely balanced, and yeah, Wales seems to be doing a lot of roadworks today. So we're going to head out onto the expressway. The sun has come out. Don't know if you'll be able to see anything. So I'm in 5th gear doing 60 miles an hour. Let's see, what does it feel like. Okay. Obviously the wind protection is not as good as I'm used to, and it's not so bad. I'm coming here on my 790. I put it in 6th gear at 70 miles an hour, and I was doing 5,000 revs. Yeah, there is some rain protection on it, but there's nowhere near as much wind protection as there is on my 790 with the Puig touring screen. But I'm not getting buffeted. I've got a Pete's helmet on. Let's see how we get on. Let's take it easy. There's quite a lot of traffic around. There's a lot of standing water, but we've got some tunnels to go through. They're always exciting, aren't they? It's a nice seating position. I'm sitting upright, heading into the wind. There's not too much wind on my shoulders at 60 miles an hour. And the wind that is blowing on my helmet is not particularly turbulent at 60 odd miles an hour. But it is quite strong. I definitely would have a larger screen on it, but the good news is you could probably put a touring screen on it easily, just off the 790. In fact, if I'd thought about it, I could have borrowed the one off my bike and put it on to try it out. Anyway, let's go up to 70 miles an hour and see what it's like. So 70 miles an hour, 6,000 and a bit revs, so several thousand more revs than the 790 Adventure. Yeah, nearly 2,000, about 1,500 revs more, which gives you an idea. But I mean, I'm cruising at 70 in terrible conditions and I feel fine. Feels quite planted, and I have to say I like the suspension on this bike very much. So can you do motorway riding? You most certainly could. So even riding around on these faster roads, it's really not an issue, I don't think. I'm quite surprised. Soon gets up to 70 miles an hour. Going to 6th, and we've still got plenty left. So you haven't quite got that top end overtaking that you would have on a bigger bike. But if you look ahead and sort of pace yourself, judge your moment, I'm guessing there's another 20 miles an hour more than you need. Just it would take a little longer to get there than its twin cylindered brother. And it's quite a windy day today, conditions aren't brilliant, but the bike feels quite planted really, for such a light bike. Well, as I said on my CB500X review, if you test ride your bike in Colwyn Bay you can. Okay, first of all, it hasn't got the indicator that I like, where it shows you whether you're going left or right. It's just a single flash for left and right, which is a little bit annoying, but that all KTMs are like that. It does have the KTM TFT, and I have to say I think I can see some condensation inside there already, so it's a bit of a design flaw on these bikes. The screen I'd like to be a bit bigger. You've got KTM My Ride, which I haven't managed to get working today yet, but I know it does work when you get it sorted, because I have it on my bike, which is brilliant. It's a brilliant thing to have on a small adventure bike if you're going somewhere you're not sure of. I use it a lot. It does have I've just noticed a mount there the same as the 790 Adventure, where you can fit your GPS anyway, which should fit on there, so that's quite good. With no rider modes as such. It does come with traction control, ABS and quick shift. I think you can turn those off, all of them, and you've got Bluetooth for your phone, different themes, shift light, clock date units, all the usual stuff. Oh, it's got CABS. Is that off-road ABS? Yeah, don't know. So I've got my ABS in road at the moment. I think you might be able to change that to off-road, which probably disables the back. So at the moment it's on front and back. So it turns out it's got quite a lot going for it. Yeah, you've got your fuel gauge, which seems a lot more stable than 790, and you've got your temperature gauge. This bike's done 500 miles. So it doesn't come with a rack, which I think is an omission. I think it should have a little rack. I wouldn't have a ADV bike without, just give you one, I wouldn't have an ADV bike without some sort of a rack, but I've seen various aftermarket ones that you can fit to it, and the bolts are there, so you definitely fit a rack to it, and doubtless you could put some small panniers on it, or soft luggage is what I would choose for this bike. The tyres, yeah, TKCs, they look quite good to me. Obviously if you're going to be doing more dedicated off-road you'd probably change those, but for road and adventure riding they look perfect. Very good tyres. This comes spec'd with Akrapovic exhaust. Personally I wouldn't bother with that. I'd go for a wings exhaust, because you can remove the baffle if you wanted to do that. The Akrapovic is quite a palaver usually to get the baffle out of it. In the UK and in Europe we get LED indicators, LED taillights. Why in America they have great big bulb indicators on these bikes, I have no idea. It must be some sort of legislation. As you can see, lent to me by Colwyn Bay Motorcycles. Thank you, Colwyn Bay. Headlight, the usual very good KTM headlight. You know, some people don't like the style of it. I think it's brilliant. I've always liked it. It's modern, but it's actually literally brilliant. Look at the indicators. We've got LED indicators at the front and back. So, oh yeah, there's a radiator guard, a plastic radiator guard. That's good. Adjustable suspension front and back. One thing that is absolutely useless in my opinion is this bash plate. I would not have it with that bash plate. I did notice that there's a KTM aluminium one that you can spec, so if I was buying this bike I'd have to have the aluminium bash plate on there. So there's your rear shock, apex suspension, your adjusters are on the front there and there. Turn the indicators off, turn the light off, and I think it's a very, it's funny, isn't it? You see these bikes on a computer or on the screen or on your iPad or whatever. When you see them in real life, it's a lot more substantial and a lot prettier than I'd expected. I want to watch out, Ludwig. This is a bike that's after my own heart, I think. Do you want to go to the seaside? I'm not trying to say everybody wants to go. Yeah, so I fell in love at the seaside. That could be quite accurate, that. I think I am quite enamoured with this little bike. Yeah, so we've got a single disc on the front. I think it's a 320mm. I'll check that later. It's a vibrate, quite smooth, no squeaking, which is unusual for KTM in my experience. So very good. Forks, usual upside down forks. I wish people would equip bikes with the right way up forks. It's just a personal bugbear of mine. I know they're stronger, but you see this chrome here? If you ride in Britain in the salty weather, you soon get pitting in there if you're not careful. You have to keep an eye on it. So anyway, the standard 43mm upside down forks, adjustable as I said, very good. You definitely feel that they're quite plush. Okay, well I have to say I've had a lovely time on that bike. Very good indeed. Really rather like it. I'd need a rack, I'd need a bigger screen, I need a better bash plate, and I'd need some bark busters, and I'd need some heated grips, but all of that's very doable. What I'm particularly impressed by is for a bike that's supposedly 855 millimeters seat height, I've got my feet more or less flat footed both sides, and I think that's probably due to the narrowness of the seat. It certainly feels very light, and it is a personal bugbear of mine that a lot of these adventure bikes are designed for people who are 6 foot plus tall, and they're always saying how it doesn't really matter about the seat height. Well, it doesn't if you're 6 foot plus tall, does it? But not all of us are. I can imagine if you absolutely threw this on an off-road course and you were hurling yourself over boulders and things, that the suspension would bottom out because it's not got the travel that the bigger bikes have got. Having said that, it's quite a light bike, and just the feel of it on the road is it feels reasonably progressive to me, and as I said before, reasonably plush. So I'm quite impressed by that. I'm quite a light rider, I only weigh 11 stone. I suppose if you're a 20 stone rider on bumpier roads you might have a slightly different experience, but I can't say that I've come anywhere near feeling it bottom out. Just seems to ride everything. Okay, in conclusion then, as I return to Colwyn Bay Motorcycles, what do I think of this bike? Is it a beginner's bike? Well, a beginner could ride it, but it's not just a beginner's bike, it's far better than that. Is it an adventure bike? Yes, it's an adventure bike. Would it be one that you'd want to ride thousands of miles on? By which I mean, you know, a fortnight away. I think you could do it. I don't think it would be an issue. All in all, I think I've fallen in love with this little bike. KTM's 390 Adventure. Very, very capable, light middleweight adventure bike. Highly recommended. Codger Biker is out! I really like this bike. Well, I'm back on old Ludwig, so I can compare him to the 390 Adventure. I really did enjoy that 390 Adventure, but on the motorway or on the expressway as we have here, the 790 definitely feels even more planted. Not that there was the 390 wasn't planted, but you definitely feel the difference. Yeah, really enjoyed that bike. Which would I prefer to be riding down here on now, on the well, heading towards the motorway? I think the 790, but I certainly wouldn't have any worries watching this caravan jackknifing around. I certainly wouldn't have any worries if I was on the 390. The difference is also I've got this big screen on my 790 which doesn't half keep the water off you compared to that little screen on the 390s. Right, so despite the weather, a thoroughly fun day. I really like the 390 Adventure. I think on those twisty back roads, the trails and B-road sections, the unclassified road section, I actually preferred the 390 Adventure. But here on the wet motorway with the blustery gale blowing, I'm on the right bike, I think, for going back. Although, you know, both can do what the other is good at. I would say the 390 Adventure is better on the B roads, the unclassified roads, the tracks. The suspension on that was just better, and it's a lighter bike. But once you want to hit on a wet road like this is where the 790 feels more comfortable and warmer, not least because of that screen, and the tanks at the bottom actually keep your legs warm. But when you consider that you can have exactly two 790 Adventures for the cost of a 790 ADVS, there's no way this is twice as good. So if it's value for money you're after and a lot of fun, I really recommend that 390 Adventure. Now, heading home in the rain, Codger Biker is stuck in traffic, scrubbing in 2 new tyres, and out!